The forbidden documentary, Doors of Perception, is available now for rent or purchase from our Vimeo site listed in the description below. We also have a new Forbidden Documentary Series YouTube channel for trailers, clips, interviews, and announcements.
I think it's just going to get weirder and weirder and weirder, and finally it's going to be so weird that people are going to have to talk about how weird it is. Eventually people are going to say, what the hell is going on? It's not enough to say it's nuts. You have to explain why it's so nuts. The invention of artificial life, the cloning of human beings, possible contact with extraterrestrials, the systems which are in place to keep the world sane are utterly inadequate to the forces that have been unleashed.
Welcome back to Forbidden Knowledge News. I'm your host, Chris Matthew. Today my guest is Crrow777. First, a couple of announcements. Be sure to rent or purchase the Forbidden Documentary, Doors of Perception, from our site listed in the description. It's only $2.99 to rent. It helps tremendously with our upcoming promotion, and we're hoping to have it on streaming platforms by June. We are booking guests for May. If you have suggestions or you'd like to be a guest, email me, forbiddenknowledgenews@gmail.com. Today I want to welcome back to the show Crrow777. He is creator of Crrow777 Radio. He holds a degree in internet technology. He researches the hidden world behind ours and the methods of deception being used by the controllers. Crow, welcome back. How you doing?
I'm good, man. Thanks so much for having me back.
It's great to have you back. I always enjoy our conversations. You do fantastic work. It's been a while since we spoke. I'm really looking forward to sharing some of the research that you've been presenting, which is absolutely incredible and could change everything that we think we understand about our cosmology and beyond. And you've also had an extremely interesting return guest on your show that I want to get to if we have time as well. But before we get into any of that, since it's been a little while for those that may not be familiar, tell us just a little bit about yourself and let them know where they can find your work.
Well, I'll cut to the chase. All my work is on a private server now. I've walked away from the censorship and all the nonsense on the platforms. While I do have an X account and some other things that Rose runs, they're basically advertisements for my private server. So everything Crrow777 can be found at Crrow777radio.com. That is Crrow777radio.com. And members get access to everything. We have forums, threads. They can create top-level topics. The membership gets free access to the movie that Jason produced called Shoot the Moon. It's a 2-hour film covering all my older telescope work with all the lunar waves, the moon work, the chemtrails, the weird UFO things, and the first discovery of the so-called second sun is included in that film. It has 10 awards in the world, and membership also gets exclusive access to the solar work I'm doing with my big, huge solar telescope that I saved up for. And I will share a couple images with everybody today. I just started shooting again 2 days ago. The weather allows.
Excellent. Well, looking forward to that. Before we get into any of that, like I said, it's been a little while since you've been on, definitely over a year. What are your thoughts on what's behind the theatrics that we witness on our televisions and social medias and everyone paying attention to the Matrix nonsense? What are your thoughts on what's behind that and what we could be expecting to come out of the administration, everything that we've been experiencing?
So I'm guessing you're talking about Trump and his
whatever angle you want to go. I mean,
man.
that's the mainstream people who pay attention to politics angle. There's many layers, as you know, but we can cut to the deeper layers. My audience is already there with me.
Well, the man came into office and he's done everything he can to come off as a savior. And when someone comes around saying things like, I'm going to remove the IRS, he fools people. Everybody forgets who brought us COVID. Who was in office when the world was shut down? Never forget. And his little buddy there, what's he call himself? Dark MAGA. He's not joking. He's wearing black for a reason, and don't be fooled. He is here with his technology to implement digital currencies, AI, and Trump is basically here like you would hire someone to oversee the disillusionment of a corporation. That's what Trump is doing now. He's shutting down endless things that will be privatized or will go away permanently. And he's not your friend. None of them are your friend. And if you can't remember what happened in 2020, then I don't know what to tell you. Who was holding the reins when our economy got broken? When I mean, everybody knows what happened, and he was there when that happened.
100%. I'm amazed at how many of my friends, colleagues, and family members who I thought were more aware of things are completely hypnotized by what the right hand of this administration is presenting, while the left hand is doing everything that you just mentioned. And the technocratic surveillance state, which should be the worst nightmare of anyone listening, is just being rolled out right under our noses. So it's pretty incredible the hypnosis it seems many are under.
You're probably going to see a massive event. If I had to guess, it'll be at the height of the power of the sun, June or maybe July or August, maybe a power outage, but you are going to see a run where you see the banking go down at some point, and they're going to try to quickly get their digital money. If they succeed in getting their digital money, human beings will have lost more freedom on that day than the known history of human beings. And this is a interesting time. The new world is emerging. It's even possible that we're recording this on the 13th. For me, the actual spring equinox on the East Coast of the United States will be on St. Patrick's Day. St. Patrick is the personification, the Catholic personification of the spring equinox. When we arrive there, it is possible that that is the actual era change day. Nobody knows for sure. A lot of people have opinions, but everyone should be able to sense the consciousness rising and everything that goes with it. The new era will not tolerate the low vibrational systems that we have all become so used to. And everybody who clutches onto all those old systems may be left behind for a period in these low vibrational systems. The new era is a much higher vibrational system, and it has no space for these older systems that did not have your best interests at heart. The new era could be defined as service to others. The old era is service to self, service to money, materialism. All that has to go away. If we all join in mass and begin to treat each other and all living things with respect, then much more quickly, these dark, dark things that we're contending with will lose their position. It's a bit like having a tuning fork where all the tuning forks are resonating in a room and then bringing in a tuning fork at a lower vibration. It can't resonate. It can't integrate into that system. And over time, all these things, the government, the dark state, all the things people don't like, they're going to go away now. And they're going to do everything they can to hold power. They're going to cause as much strife and destruction as they can. And it's really on us how quickly we lift up our minds and no longer participate in the systems that we grew up with.
Right on. I like that tuning fork analogy. That's right on. You mentioned the rising consciousness, and I've heard you discuss this before, how it coincides with what is beyond our atmosphere, the firmament, what we view as the sun, and its possible counterpart that we're going to discuss today. First of all, tell us a little bit about what led you to this discovery.
Well, in 2012, actually it was sometime before that. Everyone remembers the crash of 2008. Shortly after that, I had had enough and I walked away from, I used to freelance my services, digital services. I used to make websites or business strategy, anything to do with running, major corporations. And after the crash of '08, I'd had enough. And I walked away and I realized I didn't know how I was going to pay my rent or anything else. And I said, well, if it's going to be like this, I might as well do what I want. So I dusted off my old telescope and I started using it. And not too long after that, I accidentally filmed the lunar wave and a bunch of other things. I held onto that footage for a year and I posted it in the fall, October of 2013. 30 days later, the flat earth community exploded, everyone referencing the lunar work I had been doing. And then in 2015, I accidentally filmed the so-called second sun. And I did release that on YouTube, but I did it much more quietly because I didn't want to go through what I went through with the lunar wave, which absolutely changed everything. And by 2016, another man with similar equipment that I used replicated what I did, but the second sun was in a different location when he did it. Then in 2016, later that year, the SLU Observatory was doing a live stream for children showing the transit of Mercury across the sun, but they had a problem. The second sun wasn't hiding behind the sun, which it is most of the time. And they couldn't get it out of frame. It was so close to the sun. About halfway through, the astronomer says, I bet you're all wondering what that other object is.
I've
That is,
seen
in
that
fact, the
broadcast,
second
yeah.
sun. Yeah. And he says, NASA knows all about it. They just don't want you to know about it. And just so people know, I wish I knew a lot more about it than I do, but I know that it's a fact. There is another sun there. People can argue all they want. Sooner or later, that will become common knowledge. It is currently, I suspect currently, that there is separation between the two bodies at some times at sunset and sunrise. And it is in the visual spectrum, at least partially, like our sun. If you go out and film at sunrise and sunset and you think you see the other object, you need to shoot video and slightly move your camera. And that will be the proof of whether you filmed the second sun or not. A still image is interesting, but you can't prove a lot with a still image. There will come a time, I suspect, where there's no more denying it, that it's visible most of the time. I think the MasterCard logo is making fun of the fact that we didn't know there was a second sun. I think that when Luke in Star Wars was on Tatooine, that's exactly what it looks like when they show the two suns on Tatooine. And also the very important movie 2001 that tried to convince us we went to the moon has a sequel called 2010. And at the end of that film, the star of the movie does this big speech where he announces his children will grow up in a world where there are two suns. And I think all of these things are referencing what is now going to come to light. And people are probably wondering about evidence. So give me a second. I'll send it through the chat here if I can. I'm going to show you two images that I have processed so far from Tuesday, a couple days ago. It's not going to let me. It's not going to let me.
So that's
put
okay.
it
What
through
you
the
can do
chat.
is just email it to me. This is a pre-recorded, so I'll just pop it up while we're discussing this.
Throw the email address you want me to use
Sure.
in the chat, please.
And while I am doing this, maybe you could tell us a little bit about the telescope that you're using in the equipment.
So I saved up for, I don't know, something like 10 years to buy a 130 millimeter Lunt hydrogen alpha solar telescope with a double stack. So two Etalons. Give me just a second and I will send this. I'm sorry. I lost my
No, we were
train of
talking
thought.
about your
What
equipment.
did you ask me?
Here we go.
So I saved up and I got that very big solar telescope. And here's the thing with filming the sun. It is by far the hardest thing I've ever tried to film. Nothing about it is easy. The brightness of the sun, trying to focus, tuning etalons to get the detail, it is all quite difficult. Um, and when I say difficult, you can do it, but to do it at a high level, it takes a lot of experience and know-how. And the thing about large solar telescopes is when the seeing is not good and the conditions are not perfect, the larger the telescope, the more that is amplified. And so, with all the spraying of chemtrails and everything that goes on, it's constantly contending with the quality of the seeing. But this first image, if you can blow it up for folks, I shot 2 days ago. This is the sun in hydrogen alpha. What you're looking at is the hydrogen alpha wavelength, which is in the visual spectrum to the far edge of red. This particular image has one fake element, and that fake element is color. I add the color. That is the only thing that is not real to what I filmed. The reason for that is when you shoot in black and white, you get a much larger color palette of shades, and I get much more detail. So when I shoot, whether I'm video or going for stills, no matter what I'm doing, I shoot in black and white. That gives me this level of detail, and then I just assign a color that helps your mind think about it. So most people would expect yellows to orange to see it. Now, on the outer edge of this, if you look at the lower left, you can see the evidence of the second sun, which is hiding behind this sun. Look at the top right, there's not much of an outer glow. Look at the lower left, and you can see the outer glow. That is, in fact, the other object, not quite dead center behind our sun. And again, for whatever reason, many times at sunrise and sunset, there is separation between them. And as it begins to rise in the sky, with what I know now, it seems to most of the time tuck in behind our sun from our vision point. But if you load the other image, I've added some things in and inverted the image. Now, this is the exact same shot, but it's been inverted. The reason it's inverted, and this is a common practice, is it shows the 3D detail more readily. So you'll notice the sunspots are now white. So you get what I'm telling you. It's literally inverted. But I added an arrow in the lower left with a line to show you where we can detect the energy signature or maybe even the edge of that other body that I'm
Yeah,
calling the second sun.
I see that. Now, on the bottom where the arrow is pointing, is that just a filament that's coming off of the sun that we see, that round?
Yeah, that's called a prominence, and it looks like flames, though it is not. And actually, let me see if I have one that I've been sharing. Hold on. Give me just
Yeah,
a second. I'm gonna get Rose to email me. Rose, can you please email me the looping animation that I've been sharing? I'm on the air now. In a minute, hopefully she'll
sure,
email
sure.
that. And what I've done is I've taken images like this, but they were close up on those prominences, and I animate them so that you can see what the movement looks like. And I speed it up about 500 times. Um, she's going to email it
Right
right
on.
now, and I'll shoot it over to you, and you'll be able to share that.
That is a brilliant picture
But
of the sun, by the way.
it takes very good equipment, which is expensive, and it takes a lot of know-how. And I have a buddy who does this with me who handles simply the software, the technical side. The days of setting up a telescope, aiming it, and focusing are gone. Now there's platforms and mini PCs and everything that go with it. But here, she said she just sent it. Let me see if I've got it. There it is. So what I'm going to do is forward this to Forbidden News. All right, you should have it, and you can share that. And then I'm going to direct you, if you would, go to my website where I have people wanted to be able to buy the stills and frame them in posters. And I'll show you on my website, I have a whole bunch that I really took a lot of time to produce. But this animation that Rose just sent is quite interesting because it shows the electromagnetic nature of the prominences and the energy flow.
All right, let's see. Can you see my screen here?
Take a minute to download, probably. So what you're looking at here is it takes 3 hours of data collection to get an animation like this. So basically what I do is I take a roughly 45-second to 1-minute video. Basically, I'm capturing in the neighborhood of 2,000 frames. Then I turn off the camera, I wait about 30 or 40 seconds, and I do the same thing again, and I do that for 3 hours. When I'm done, I take all those videos and I stack them down into a still image like the ones you just saw. And then I turn them into a video and speed it up 500 to 1,000 times. And this allows you to see the actual motion. Wow. And you'll notice the curving, arcing nature, the electromagnetic nature. In my view, the sun is not a nuclear furnace. That dark spot is what's called a filament, but it's actually just a prominence at an angle that doesn't allow you to see it, like a flame. You're just looking straight down on it. But again, the sun is electromagnetic in my view. And furthermore, it is my view that we're looking at an outer shell and that there is no ball of matter inside that, which makes you wonder where the energy is coming from. I think that the energy is being drawn from counter space. Eric Dollard thinks as much, and I just interviewed a very high-end scientist who used to be in high reaches of academia and the government. He left all that, and he confirmed everything that I'm saying here as what they think is correct. By the way, those people refer to the other sun as the black sun, but I do not think that's the right moniker. I think the black hole sun or black sun is something different than what I'm filming.
Let's talk a little bit about what has changed that we can observe for ourselves in the sky. One thing that I definitely notice is the color of the sun. I distinctly remember a very orange, warm sun growing up, and now it just looks like a LED light bulb. And I started to gradually see this change over the years. Is this something that would be connected to the second sun?
Yeah, what is going on in my view is we're about to change the age. When that is exactly, I don't think, people may know, but most of us are just, getting the best we can. It could be a few days from now on the actual spring equinox. But my point is the sun for the new era, look, the sun is like a lens and it lenses in all the energies and it's directly to do with our consciousness. So as you notice consciousness rising, even in animals, right? Have you seen the bulldog grab a skateboard? Okay, well, if he did that in the 70s, that'd be the most famous dog in the universe. But that's common now. All life is boosting. The sun is the instigator or the provider of that. This other binary, it is supposedly said in Vedic astrology, astronomy, and other things, when it gets further away, our consciousness goes into the dark age. When it gets close, our consciousness explodes into the golden age. That's what we're experiencing. And the color change, I would take issue with one thing. To compare it to an LED, I think is a mistake because an LED is not a healthy thing.
Right.
Our sun is conscious and alive, and it has to do with our consciousness. The new, very pale look it has is reflecting the vibrational boost, the frequency boost. A few days ago, they actually turned off the monitor that does the earth vibration, the Schumann resonance monitor. They turned it off because they didn't want people to see the spike in energy. I think for like 24 hours, they turned it off so people couldn't see. The vibration of the earth is going up. This is related to the sun. This is related to the binary that I've been trying to get people to consider. And this is a hell of a time, a heck of a time to be alive. You have a front row seat to events that take millennia to come around. And right now, we have the opportunity to deal once and for all with the dark aspects, the evil aspects of this world, and claim our birthright and create a new earth, which is respectful to all consciousness, to all living things, that has a vibratory level and frequency that does not allow for such selfish and dark manipulation, which we have lived our whole lives under.
It's so interesting you mentioned the animals. This is something I've been noticing for the past few years, and you're exactly right. If there was a dog skateboarding or almost just outright talking, like I hear some of these dogs do, and even cats, it definitely seems that has been this jump in consciousness on all levels of life on the planet. But something that does concern me as of late, there seems to also be this regression that has come along with the hopium that's being provided as well. And I'm hoping that that falls away and more people will become more aware of what's really behind this new administration and everything behind that. But you're absolutely right. It's incredible to see the animals reacting the way they are.
The plants are going to do the same thing. They are also alive. Life in this world is getting an upgrade. And the chemtrailing that you see, that is a direct effort to block the lensing energy from our sun to boost and upgrade us, basically, to use low-minded computer language, to boost our consciousness. These chemtrails are spraying salts and metals in the sky, scattering that energy. But the truth is, they're going to fail. If they woke up tomorrow and said, all right, it's low tide, we don't want the tide to come in anymore, they might be able to take all their resources and prevent the tide from coming in for a day or a week or even a year. I don't know. But eventually, I guarantee you that tide's coming in. And that's what's going on now. And the longer we give energy to things like our corporation that we call a government, people can't possibly remember that the same man doing what he's doing now shut down the world and broke almost every system and caused misery for people, having them self-imposed lock up in their houses and not be able to see their parents, some of them dying, never having been able to say goodbye to their parents. That's the man who was there. And if you forget that, then you've got some work to do. This new era is about what you can do, not what some other person like a magical president can do. And to sit here and glom on to the supposed commander in chief as if he's going to solve your problems, I would ask a single question. When's the last time the government ever did anything to benefit us? For longer than you've been alive, there's been a speech from the man who brought us through World War II warning you about the military industrial complex, which was already out of control. And you don't even reap the benefits of the Constitution right now because of the way the corporation has you classified. But all that's coming to an end. It's just a matter of what do we have to go through to get there, and how long do we have to contend with it.
Right on. The only way to it is through it, it seems. Let's get back to the implications of this second sun as it relates to our real cosmology. And this is, I understand, something that is almost impossible to really understand. But I do think that the Flat Earth community has presented things that are very important to understand what is outside the firmament, outside our atmosphere, because everything NASA has given us is complete bullshit. And there's definitely something more than any of the information that we've presented. But what are your thoughts on our cosmology?
We're living on a stationary plane. What it looks like, I wish I could tell you. I don't have the map. Does it go on forever and ever more than we even think? I don't know. But until we have some idea of the map, trying to figure out the motion of things is nigh on impossible. And then when we have ridiculous planned issues like the Antarctic nonsense, which I will have nothing to do with, it just causes division. And the problem is not even whether flat Earth is right or globe Earth is right. The issue is we need to not be divisive more than we ever have in our existence. And they are causing division and they're doing it on purpose. And all I can say is woe to you if you are involved in dividing people over such a silly thing that you can't prove one way or the other. What I can tell you is it's self-evident that we're not spinning. That's a fact. If people don't want to believe it, then that's fine. The Creator gave us all free will. You're entitled to that. It's not my place to belittle you or try to fight with you, to try to force you to believe what I believe. And that's exactly what these communities have done. The minute you form a group, if that group begins to matter, it will be infiltrated by people who have bad ideas at heart. And that is what has happened here. And that is not allowed on my website. You bring any of that nonsense in, I'll show you the door quicker than you can put a period on the end of your comment. The division that this has caused is devastating because right now, the primary thing we need is people to respect life, to respect each other. The new era will have no room for this kind of divisive, nonsensical hatred where I'm going to fight with you because you won't think the way I think. And for all those people out there causing it, I would point out not only were you granted the divine spark of life from on high, the greatest gift anyone could be granted, you were granted free will, which means it ain't your business what someone else is doing with their free will unless they're harming. And if they're not harming, then what are you guys on about? It's disappointing at a level that I can't tell you. And the baiting that's going on and the putting words in the mouths of others and trying to co-opt people into your side of the fight, it's destructive. It's just destructive at a time when we need to be a million miles away from stuff like that. But to pull back around, I sent you a link in the chat. If you click on that, I can show you some of the images that I spent quite a bit of time picking the best captures that I've had and producing them at a level, and then making some of these files could be printed, 20 feet wide.
All right, let me get my...
If you wanted to make a giant thing. And many of the community at Crrow777radio.com have printed them in beautiful ways and sent me the images. Those are just the movie posters if you scroll down. So that weird one in the middle is the moon shot in full spectrum, but these are all the solar images. That's the moon in full spectrum. So that's the dark side of the moon you can't normally see with your eyes. But here's all the solar stuff down below. Sunspots, quarter shots, full disk shots, close-ups on the prominences, and there's one more page too you can look at beyond. And so I put a very inexpensive price on these so people could participate and at the same time help me pay my bills for serving private content because it's not cheap. And you can see there's a black and white. That's what it looks like before I before I choose a color that I think helps you view it. That's what it looks like. That's how it comes out of the camera once I've processed it. Down in the lower left, there's a close-up of a sunspot.
Nice.
But this is all on the website, and the community that's grown there that supports our ability to have unfettered, non-censored free speech on a private server, and for me to be able to make videos that don't get messed with. It's a big deal because everywhere I've ever tried to post, I've been censored. I've had stuff deleted. Get this, years after I posted the first lunar wave to YouTube back in the day, I got an email where they informed me that they claimed partial ownership on every video I'd ever
What?
uploaded there and that they had the right to do whatever they wanted with it.
Wow. What the
That must have been about 20, it was right around the time of Sandy
Yeah.
hoax where the internet was just ripping that to shreds before all that content got deleted. But so that means the first lunar wave, which I uploaded there, they're claiming the right to be able to do whatever they want with that. I will no longer agree to these greedy, self important systems. And so the private server is a big, big deal. But I wanted to mention, if you want to know the truth about where we live, unfortunately, I can't give you a map, but I can tell you there's land masses you've never heard of. There's a movie from 1963 from Walt Disney called Sword in the Stone,
Yeah.
where the brilliant owl Archimedes, who's like the smartest little character in the movie and hangs out with the wizard there, tells you what happened to the flat earth that was well known, to the non-rotating stationary plane I told you is where we exist, was swapped out with the spinning, put your mind in a spin so you're never stable ever again. It's in that movie. There's a conversation where young Arthur is told, you got to forget all these old things that we knew were true and make way for the new ideas. And it's in there if you want to go see. They're telling you the truth. Unfortunately, there's no map that goes with it. But again, we all have free will. So if someone you know doesn't agree with you and you choose to treat them badly or treat them differently, then you are the problem. Because right now, we have to come together or we are going to deal with some dark, dark stuff before we get rid of the controlling powers of this place.
You mentioned the lunar wave. Has there been any updates to your work or research with this?
Um, at some point, I was becoming the center of all lunar waves, which shouldn't be. People should go out and film and do their thing and learn what they can learn. And it got to the point where everything that got filmed kept getting sent to me, like I had the power to
Yeah.
authenticate it. So I just stepped away from all that. I don't join groups. I do all my own work. I share what I can share, but if I film the second son, it doesn't make me the instant god of all knowledge about the second son. Everyone else should be out there filming if they have an interest and learning what they can learn and sharing so that others can take it farther. I mean, I can help, I can offer what I think is correct, but we've got to move away from, oh, this is the first person who did it, so that's the authority. That's really not the way it works. The authority is the truth. And I can't make up the truth. I can only recognize it. And if I fail to recognize it, the truth is still the truth.
Is there anything else that you would like to mention about the sun or your work with that before we move on?
Yeah, it's a very good time to go out and pay attention to the light of this world, the thing that gives us all the energy and allows the plants to grow and allows you to not experience nighttime 24 hours a day. And give thanks and appreciate it and get by this idea that somehow if you appreciate the sun, you're an evil sun worshiper, because this creation where we were granted the divine spark of life, that's part of it. When you look up at night, all of that is part of it. And we've been taught to think wrong things about it or to shame people who paid attention to it, like they're an evil sun worshiper. All these low vibrational ideas, you should cast them aside and appreciate it for what it is. It's allowing life to go on here. And right now, it's bumping our consciousness up as the powers that be do everything in their power to fly 24/7 with an unlimited budget, filling the skies with salts and metal particulates designed to scatter that energy that is meant for you and me.
Yeah, 100%. And I have not seen a decrease in those activities of them spraying the shit in the skies. So there's another thing that yet continues to happen. But for the last half of the show, I'd love to hear a little bit about your conversations with a gentleman that claims to be Saint Germain, very convincingly, I might add. And
Well, let me make a
Sure.
correction. He's not claiming to be the historical Saint Germain. What he is the oldest living
I
male of
apologize.
the
Yes.
family line, making him head of that line. He is not 700 years old or whatever. That's not what we're doing here.
Right on. The conversations that I have heard with this gentleman are absolutely fascinating, and he seems to know things that he shouldn't be able to know, to say the least. So I'd love to hear how you came across this gentleman.
Some years ago, I was in a podcast and I was talking about the old alchemical idea, or even the old guild idea, that when you're ready for a teacher, if you ask, one will come. And so on the air, I did that thing. And I don't know, a couple, 2, 3 days later, I got an email. And I get hundreds of emails a day, but for whatever reason, I recognized that that was one I should pay attention to. And that's how I met Fortune.
And that's what he goes by as Fortune?
Yeah.
I'd love to hear a little bit about how the relationship progressed and what he offered and why he reached out to you.
I asked if there was any true alchemists. At the time, I was studying versions of alchemy directly related to the idea of spagyrics, which is basically making remedies that actually heal you out of plants, which was the alchemy of the plant kingdom called spagyrics. And I can only say so much about this because it's not, because other people that are suffering would hear what I say and I don't have a way to offer them help. So I can't, but he ended up curing me of a thing that's not supposed to be curable.
Wow. That's incredible.
And he did it with spagyrics.
What kind of information has he presented about some of the things that we're discussing today? Rising consciousness, what is behind some of the nefarious things that we're experiencing? Maybe a couple of the most profound things that you can talk about.
He has an encyclopedic knowledge of events. I mean, it's unbelievable, the encyclopedic knowledge he has. And this goes all the way back in time. Like, you could ask him anything about supposed ancient Rome. You've got to realize the man is not only a count, he's a marquis as well, which is actually a little higher rank, but he's in a group of people where he's not like that. He doesn't agree with what's going on in the world, where I would imagine a lot of people that are at that rank of aristocracy, maybe they're benefiting from this or participating. I really don't have a way to know, but he's dead set against it, does not appreciate what's happening here. He is clairvoyant at a level. And he looks younger than me, though he's quite a bit older than me.
Has he presented any information that would help us explain the nature of our reality as it relates to the afterlife, what lies beyond our perception, angels, demons, intelligences?
Well, he doesn't take a lot of time with things like demons that are negative, but when you check out here, one of the ideas that's been shared is that if you go into the light and this is not universal. But if you are seduced into a light, you may simply be getting in line to come back here. If you go away from the light and find yourself in absolute darkness and you're not afraid, which is key, I mean, key, then you can begin to create. There's all kinds of ideas around this, but I can't really offer much more because I'm not the authority. I just know what's been shared with me, and I mention it because shedding fear is a very important big deal, particularly for this new era, because so much of what goes on here that's not helpful is based in fear, to include the social engineering almost always has a fear component attached to it.
We discussed briefly about the effects that this second sun has and the rising consciousness. We just talked a little bit about the animals, but for humans, what could we expect as this unfolds, as it relates to our consciousness potential, our intuition, the abilities that may be dormant?
It'll appear as magic. If we saw it now, it would be no different than showing someone a cell phone who was living in a cave hundreds and hundreds of years ago. It would seem just like utter magic. When we get forward into the uplifting, higher consciousness era, we won't need cell phones, for one thing. We will be able to manifest the things we need. There won't be this idea of working all day to scrape to pay bills. All that will be low vibrational systems of the past. What human beings can accomplish at the higher spiritual levels is astonishing, almost to the point of I don't know that there's any limit. And most of us have heard about such things like the magical yogi who lived in India on a mountaintop somewhere, but we didn't take it seriously. And a lot of it is like a folk tale or obviously exaggerated. But if you look around, there are plenty of accounts of what a highly spiritualized human being can accomplish. And it's beyond magical, or what we would consider magical.
As you know, every movement that humanity has that is initially beneficial, if it's not manufactured to begin with, is eventually infiltrated and co-opted and used against us. And I think the same has occurred within the quote-unquote truth communities, the spiritual communities, and there's a lot of good information, but it's also sprinkled with complete bullshit, crazy, stupid ideas that gets mixed in with the truth, to where whenever a person discusses this stuff, they are looked at like they're absolutely nuts.
Well, this is the reason why I don't join groups, because when you do that, if the group matters, it'll become a target for infiltration, and exactly what you described will go on. But the thing about a rising consciousness is the further on the path you get away from the low vibrational systems we're all used to, your BS detector comes online. And while you might not know everything you want to know, you will, in fact, understand with just a syllable or a sentence that this is not anything for me. This is something to be ignored or cast aside. And we still exist in the era where many people still feel like they need someone to tell them if this is correct or it's not correct. We're moving past this kind of living. You know, in the not too distant future, we won't need to feel like I've got to ask somebody who knows, because I'll be able to detect on my own, at least at some level, whether there's value here or whether I should walk away from it. Now, the people that are very far down the road raising their consciousness, they will probably know a lot more, the details to some degree. For me, I'm very good at detecting what seems like nonsense with very little information, but again, it doesn't give me a map of the world or a lot of the things I'd like to know, but it does give me enough to know that I shouldn't waste my time with this. And what that does in the long run is it gives you clear boundaries of where you don't really want to waste your time. I'm not going to that channel, or I'm not listening to TV, or I'm not, you know better, because it spews nonsense and it's self-evident. And so it's important that people begin to assess things on their own, to determine for themselves, does this seem like it's worthwhile? Or is the fact that I'm questioning it in the first place a good reason to walk away? And what you also find is people adopt their favorite channel or their favorite source, and then they defend those ideas and they measure all new information against those ideas. And that kind of thinking needs to be modified as well, because it's better to move along and accept what you think is acceptable, but be ready to upgrade it the moment you know new things that allow you to move beyond that level. Don't keep latching on and defending this thing that you liked or that you had adopted, because with new information, it gives you the ability to go a little further on down the road instead of being stuck defending these old ideas that you've acquired and accepted.
More and more people are starting to become aware that almost all of our systems have been weaponized and used against us, including religion. And this is something that has been since the earliest of times. It has been used to control us. But what I see now that correlates to that, the use of religion for control, is seems like behind everything that is unfolding politically, geopolitically, that people pay attention to, is correlating with this biblical prophecy, this biblical playbook that seems to be unfolding. And I think dogma destroys worlds. I think that it holds people back from their true potential, and it keeps us enslaved. What are your thoughts on the use of a Revelations biblical playbook to achieve what is going to be rolled out?
Well, if someone wanted to do that, it would be a very easy way to get the attention of people who are already familiar with that. But for me, religion is very different from my spiritual path. Religion is a finite thing, and it adopts the group mentality, and it makes rules, and it does all these things. My spirituality has no limit, and it's outside of the idea of religion. And as far as the using people's, big religions where a lot of people are invested in that, of course they're going to mirror those ideas to try to coerce them in one way or another. And by the way, do I need to remind anyone that through the entirety of history, if you look for the top dog, that's going to be a priest? They've always held the power.
And one more thing I want to get your thoughts on before we close out is the quote-unquote disclosure movement, the ups and downs with the information being presented, and what could be behind the theatrics and what is really happening. Because my understanding of extraterrestrials is not little green men coming from different planets, probably more of a spiritual consciousness phenomena. But what are your thoughts on what's happening there?
We're not the only life forms. You can look through the historical records of any culture, and they will talk about everything from angels to divas to dakinis to there's been a million ways that people in meditation or people with their high spiritual attunement will tell you flat out, I had this teacher who taught me, and it's not a human being. That's a given. You mentioned something earlier about the space agencies, and that's where the problem comes in. Space agencies were put here to try to ensure that you don't know anything about what's above your head. And they're all in it together. And it doesn't matter if it's Iran's space agency or someone else, because people think, well, they're not even friends. It doesn't work that way. There's a higher power over such things as governments. And they have convinced you that you're living on a thing that spins faster than a 30-06 rifle bullet, and they've done a lot of things. And part of that has been to normalize this idea of what Hollywood has sunk in is an alien. And in that, they have normalized that they came through enormous amounts of space to get here. All these things are just meant to mess with your mind. From my point of view, the sun is not 93 million miles away. It's right here. It's part of our system. The moon is not over 250,000 miles away. Can I see something that's over 250,000 miles? I mean, use common sense. There's a white crater that they claim is 40 miles wide. Supposedly, I can see that with my naked eye at 340, thousand miles. It's ridiculous. But whether you choose to accept that or not, the disclosure, and this goes into the government. Oh, we're going to release JFK and we're going to release. There's a thing called revelation of method. And when the point comes where they do disclose the truth about these things, that will be the end of an alchemical procedure that worked to transmute your mind into a fantasy-based reality. So whether or not you ever get the truth of it, it was all done as a control mechanism. And we should be less worried with disclosure and more worried, not worried, but more in putting more effort towards the raising and respect for living things that has been denied. Our consciousness shift has been messed with and blocked to the degree that it can be. Our freedoms have been messed with to the degree that they can be. Our life and what we do in our life has been messed with to the degree that they can be. It's time for all that to begin to disintegrate. And so, are there other life forms? Well, I know one thing for sure. If I see a baby rabbit, I absolutely know there's more rabbits. If I see rabbits and bears and lizards, I know there's all kinds of life. And I would be a fool to assume that I am the only highly conscious life. As a matter of fact, there are creatures living in this world that are in different ways just as intelligent as you are. Most of them live in the ocean.
This is great information, Crrow. Is there any final thoughts that you'd like to leave the audience before we close out?
It is critically important that you recognize that the old world and the low vibrational systems that have caused us so much hardship over our lifetimes, of those of our parents and grandparents, where it really started slipping, because it was my grandparents where the oppression started to pick up steam. And my parents' life, about halfway through, the chess pieces started moving. Then in 63, where my life begins, it went into high gear with the JFK consciousness shifting event. It is critically important to start recognizing the value of all living things and to begin to raise your vibration level, fill your heart with love, treat people and living things with respect, and don't be vindictive and vengeful. You may be upset with what's been done, but those people are going to lose their spot in the long run. The systems that they're clutching onto are going to disintegrate and either split off into some hellscape compared to where we're going to be, or they'll just cease to be. It is critically important that we move forward in a way that represents a way we want to live, where we can have good lives, decent lives, where we can raise children who have hope and love in their heart and don't have to be concerned with ridiculous things like checking into a job for most of your life, then giving half the money away as the price of everything you need to survive goes through the roof. These old systems need to go now, and our consciousness needs to shift to match the promising future that is now becoming available.
Right on. Very well said, Crrow. Thank you so much again. We will definitely do this again in the future. I will have all your links easily accessible for the audience right in the description. And until next time, everyone, have an excellent evening. We will talk again tomorrow, and we'll see y'all then. The nature of this experience seems to always be just beyond the reach of our science, technology, and consciousness collective.
There's layers upon layers upon layers.
It does add such an element of mystery to this place.
Why are we here?
We're getting closer to the truth now.
There's too many people experiencing profound interactions with conscious entities.
I'm focused on the non-human intelligence contact phenomenon in dreams. Dreams involve interactions with real entities.
People are waking up paralyzed. They're sensing or seeing something very evil in the room.
I have experienced sleep paralysis. Shadow people start to appear.
I was taken from my earliest memories by non-human alien entities. More and more people are wanting to talk about these things.
A ufologist would say, well, that's obviously an extraterrestrial. And a paranormal researcher would say, well, that's a ghost. Well, what if it's all of those things and none of those things? The entities, the intelligence that was just beyond our understanding.
There seems to be something a little extra that can take forms of anything.
I can't believe what I've seen, but it continues on a daily basis. We're definitely not alone. UFOs, UAPs, portals opening up.
I live with all this supernatural stuff. You kind of grow up with that around here. You see a lot of strange things. I don't like to talk about skinwalkers too much.
I had an experience with a skinwalker entity.
People, they would say they would transform into bears, into wolves. There's these bad things that occur. Ghosts, UFOs, and all types of things coming from somewhere.
Our beliefs, our emotions, and our fears all seem to heavily influence the nature of these experiences.
There is so much more that we just don't have time for in this busy, loud, noisy life that we lead.
All of this is planned. Everything is synchronicity.
There's so much more out there. We really are picking up such a small percentage of the electromagnetic spectrum.
The world is an amazing place.
It feels like we're gods in training.